Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Hi there and welcome. This is the show where we explore topics that help you create your lifestyle to live full and work fun. One thing that makes work fun for me is that I get to work with some pretty wonderful people. I learn so much from them and I get to share in their joy of work and life. Well, one such person is today's guest. Whenever we work on projects, she consistently inspires me. She makes me laugh and I learn new things. She genuinely makes work fun. I am thrilled to have Marianne Pelletier on the show today. With over 35 years of experience in fundraising, specifically in prospect research and data science, Marianne is a pioneer in donor modeling and data mining techniques. She has shaped this segment of the research profession, having held key positions in prestigious institutions like Harvard University, Lesley University, Carnegie Mellon University, and Cornell University. A recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award from the New England Development Research Association and a Woman of the Year designation by the National Association of Professional Women, Marianne is known for her immense contribution to the field. Aside from her professional work, she also served as a volunteer for both election campaigns and social service agencies and has shown her commitment to social causes. In this episode, Marianne will share her journey, insights, and experiences in the world of data science and nonprofit fundraising. We'll dive into a wide range of topics, including her approach to problem solving with data, her innovative ideas, and her passion for the work that she does. Well, let's dive right into our conversation, shall we? Welcome, Marianne. I am so glad that you're here on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me, Gayla.
I'm going to ask just a fun little question first. Is there a fun fact that you're willing to share about yourself that may not have been in the bio?
I think it was hinted at in the bio. I'm curious and invested in just about everything. And so I do a lot of homesteady things and I do spin wool into yarn. I do make my own soap and I'm trying to build a garden and I even save wood for firewood. So I'm very much into using land, and it's not just reduce, reuse, recycle. It's also, I love doing things with my hands. And I believe that we have a lot of boredom time in our lives. And so if I'm doing something where I'm making something for myself or family, then I'm happy.
What you do with the spinning and making soap and repurposing the wood and everything like that, does that help you in your professional life when you take a break from professional life and do something creative like that?
So yeah, it's curious. So I have a liberal arts education, so you can apply something from one discipline while you work in another. And I was watching Norm Abrams' New Yankee Workshop one day, and he was talking about making measurements and setting up this I learned in sewing. And so spinning is the act of, making a very consistent yarn. Sometimes it's just a meditative act for me. So your listeners are not going to see my hands move in and out in the rhythm of spinning, but it's meditative and it allows my brain to flow free and solve problems. But sometimes the tools or the techniques used in spinning are brilliant tools and techniques when it comes to like managing data or figuring out the symbolism of things.
That leads me into my next question of, can you explain a little bit of what you do professionally?
Sure. So I became enamored with doing statistics in the nonprofit sector when I worked at what was New Hampshire College at the time. And I figured out what the statistical model was of a annual giving donor and how much to ask people for. And so we did a 50% increase in 1 year in our annual giving results because of the work that I did. And my administrative assistant was actually in the same MBA program. So I fell in love with that. And I've been following that ever since. I come from the nonprofit sector. I come from what's called prospect research, where we're trying to figure out, say your alma mater, Gayla, says, do we want to send somebody out to ask Gayla for $1 million gift? And our job in prospect research was to figure out if we believed that that was a good idea, if it would be workable.
So you've been
And
in nonprofit for quite some time?
most of my career. I was a consultant at a software firm for 3 years, but the rest of the time it was either in libraries or I was in fundraising. Yep.
So you started out in prospect research and then you got into data science.
Yes.
You alluded to an MBA program. So did you get into a program to get you jazzed about statistics? I mean, to me, data science seems so, well, it's a science. I mean,
Well,
you are the ultimate problem solver. You're my hero problem solver.
Well, I mean, so we all have things that we love, right? So you do the work you love to do because there's somebody else who wants to do the work that you don't, right? So when people say to me, "Oh, I hate doing statistics," I say, "I love to hear that because it means that you can hire me." So that's one of my answers to your question. But I went into the MBA program simply because I wanted to have a master's degree so I could get promoted, essentially.
Mhm.
But during the MBA program, I learned a lot about how to look at business, how to look at marketing, how to look at all of the parts of business. We took a look at all of those. So sometimes even when you're talking to me about marketing, I hearken back to those classes. The accounting background I got, it made so much sense when I was doing things like converting client data from one database to another. We had to figure out the accounting because you make a gift, it has to go to a fund, has to go into the books. It served me well.
For all organizations, data science is very helpful. Am I using the right term or is there a different term?
No, the latest term is data science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the early days, we called it customer modeling, or in the nonprofit sector, Peter Wiley termed the phrase donor modeling. He's one of the two pioneers, him and Lawrence Henze. And then as soon as we all started adopting machine learning techniques, we called it data mining because that's a machine learning expression. And then we started saying data science after a while. Well, and we also threw in artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence uses machine learning techniques. We all want to feel included, right? But we want bigger and bigger umbrella terms to say we can actually go look at something and make a strategic decision based on the information that we find. So yeah, it's called data science now.
Not everyone gets all excited about numbers and databases, but you tend to glow with it. So I know that I can see the cogs moving when you're trying to solve a problem of transferring data into the end product so you can make very good, solid decisions and move forward. I can imagine that that's what makes work fun for you is
that's when
problem
I work fun.
solving.
Yeah. And that's the fun part, right? So I went to college to study to be a poet. So that's symbolism. Poetry is about loading symbolism into about 8 lines, right? One of my side gigs, as I've mentioned to you, is that I do psychic work on the side. That's about interpreting symbols as well. Even if I'm doing channeling and your grandmother, say, is talking to me, she's presenting symbols, white gloves. I have one grandmother, every time I read for this person, there's a cast iron frying pan in her hand. You better eat better than you're eating. You know what I mean? And that's like a clear, obvious message. So it doesn't surprise me that going to the symbolisms that presented by data and data patterns and data behavior or personal behavior as exhibited by data, that interests me just as much. It hits the same chords in my heart. And yeah, it's fun.
Your business is Stapel Analytics Group. You work with nonprofits in the nonprofit sector to help them with their fundraising operations, and particularly using data to help them streamline.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The firm itself is all about operations. So there are lots and lots of direct fundraising consultants. How do you set up a campaign? How do you do your major gifts? But we want to do the back end of that because all of us who are involved, we're all just the group of us are just passionate about making workflows go better and more efficiently, using the right tools, cleaning up the data, and then making really good strategic decisions.
That's love that.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that you started, I mean, most of your career has been in the nonprofit sector, and you discovered the data science piece, really made some great progress. You haven't turned back. That's really...
No, I have not recovered yet.
I love how you said that. Haven't recovered since.
Yeah.
What brought you to starting Stapel Analytics Group? What compelled you to break away from working for someone else to working for yourself? Because owning a business is hard.
Yeah, and scary. Yeah.
And it's scary.
Yeah, but this is the live full work fun piece that you talk about. When I listen to your podcast, that's exactly where everybody goes, right? What is the thing that makes you happy to get out of bed? So there's a story that goes with all this, right? So as early as 1993, so I was barely 5 years into full-time nonprofit research, I got hired to do contract work on the side. There just are not enough people who are passionate about research and do it really well. And now there are not enough people in nonprofits who do data science. So I have been a subcontractor on the side for most of my career, most of my nonprofit career. There I was at Cornell, and I feel like my last piece. So I was at Cornell for 9 years, and I landed at the end in the business intelligence department. And what I was learning there was how to share the results with the audience. So the biggest struggle we have is that it's not finding what the patterns tell us. It's getting somebody who normally works with people to people, salesmen, to hear us that this data says without telling them exactly all the math. I was actually studying that my last couple of years at Cornell, and it just got to the point where it was just time to launch out on my own. It's scary as all get out, as you know, because you did it. And what's the most important thing to me is that it's not that I stand on my own feet, right? Tub on its own bottom. It's not that. It's that I spend my days doing what I know is important to the industry and to the environment and to our profession. And I don't spend any part of my day sitting in a meeting being told that I need to explain how I'm going to solve this problem, or having to deal with the bureaucracy that goes with trying to collaborate with a whole lot of people and get them to go along with you, even if they don't completely understand what you do. Sometimes it seems like the only time we trust is when we get on an airplane. We don't walk up to the pilot, say, and tell me exactly how you're going to fly this plane and what's that button for? What's that button for? Sometimes when we get to work, especially the bigger the organization becomes, the more people you have to convince to see your vision and come with you. And at StopHell, we don't. When Greg on my team calls me up and he says, this is how I feel and this is what I see and this is what I want to do, he does it. Whether or not he makes money with it, I mean, that's the piece that where you and I have to sell it, right? Or the right audience has to come along. Sometimes our stuff, we build it and people figure it out 3 or 4 years later and go, oh, yeah, here you are. The most important thing to me is that when I get up, I'm doing something that I feel is good and contributes. And my goal, I mean, when I die, right, my goal is to leave a body of work. It's not to leave a career or leave a set of, seniority tags or a pension. Is to leave a body of work. It's a huge risk. I'm really lucky that I have a spouse who provides health insurance, and every day I'm really happy that I do it.
And you hit the nail on the head. I think that most people that I talk with, and me personally too, is when you get into bigger organizations, that
Right.
bureaucracy just it's tough. It gets harder and harder to live with. And it seems like the turning of change is super slow. And in a small business, and you work with nonprofits that may be larger, but they're medium
size. We work with huge nonprofits. Yeah.
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 So
we know how to work the bureaucracy.
You know that things turn a little slowly, but you know how to work with that bureaucracy because you've been there.
And patience. Yeah. And I mean, that's the piece, right? It's not that I'm saying that, every place I ever worked for was a miserable place. What I'm saying is I don't fit there. I don't fit in that ethos. I get an idea. I want to take off with it. I have had a lot of jobs. I mean, at Cornell, we implemented a lot of my ideas and it was great. But what you just said, the speed of adoption is what I was trying to describe. When Greg wants to start a new course, he starts a new course. He doesn't have to wait for me. It's his course. He owns it, right? And it was actually the three of us, and we were in New Orleans at a conference, and we were sitting at Mother's Restaurant. That's where, we all said, oh yeah, innovate, teach, fix, and Greg goes, fit. Both Ruthie and I busted out laughing, but he says, yeah, fit, if fix, innovate, teach. Went, do you have a StopHell fit approach? And how do we coalesce? Because for me, it's, I'm a big maternal person, right? So I just want to fix stuff. If you got a thing, I want to fix it. And I try to describe myself as like, I'm the kind of person that wants to untangle yarn, So how do I fix stuff? It's hard to say to a client, hey, you got something broken? They're like, no, I don't have anything broken. What's the matter with you, right? But it's, hey, can we help you make this better? And that turned out to be, when we did a marketing study, that turned out to be our collaborative nature. That turned out to be the big deal. But that was the piece. It was just three of us. We didn't have to go to committee. We said it. We came back to you with it, tested it with you, and it went bam. And here we are. Nonprofits especially don't have a budget. And they don't really have the budget to do the kind of think tank work that we do. So we did our water cooler chat today on Power Automate. How do we work Power Automate to our advantage? And it saves a lot of repetitive tasks. It manages a lot of information into one place and out to several places. And it's a really cool tool. But who in a nonprofit who's busy trying to get the emails out and reassure the boss the emails are going out, talk to the trustee on the phone, take care of the event, pay the caterer? They're always understaffed by design, and they're under-resourced by design. So what we do is we love coming in, being, the team that says you could do this better and faster this way. We love that because we've been in their seats. So
Right.
when I was running the annual fund at New Hampshire College, my budget was the same budget as the guy before me from 15 years prior to me. So over the course of 20 years, he and I had the same budget, and I had to raise 2 or 3 times as much money as he did. And so there I was, begging the trustees to support me for an additional $4,000. And this trustee is a vice president of IBM. He's shaking his head. He can't believe that I had to beg that much, but that was because the money's supposed to go into programming. We have the empathy piece, but we also have the passion for solving the problem. On my off time, I mean, I know that I share this with you sometimes too. On my off time, I'm still playing with data, and I'll sit in the waiting room at the doctor's office and go, 40% of the people in this room have glasses on.
So
it gets automatic.
I think that's amazing because we have our superpower, and data is your superpower.
Yeah, data. People call me the data whisperer. People say data doesn't speak to me like it does to you, Marianne. And I'm thinking maybe that's some of the psychic stuff. But I had a professor in college who said, the way to get an A in my class is to love history, to have it dripping from your lips all the time, to be reading it and eating it and never letting go and not being able to sleep because you got to know more. He says, and then the other way to do it is self-discipline, right? And so I hate washing dishes. I always have a dishwasher in my house, but you better believe that, when it comes to the number, every organization I belong to, they're like, you're the treasurer, or you take care of the logistics, or you figure out how many people, or you do the database, or, because it's about the information and managing the information. And I love it. If you think about, what is it, the spaceship guy, the spaceman from the Lego movie? He spends the whole movie going, let me build a spaceship. No, I really want to build a spaceship. And then they finally let him do it. That's how I feel when, we go in and people say, can you figure out the tip? I'm like, yeah.
How long has Stapel Analytics Group been open? Since 2012?
Yeah, three of us in 2012 were up in the Adirondacks, me, my wife, and my wife's best friend. And we founded Stapel. We essentially established Stapel. Stobbs is my wife's last name. Pelletier is mine. We started the paperwork with our lawyer. So we've been established since November 2012. It took 3 years for me to feel faithful enough that I could go full-time with it. I went full-time in 2015.
Since being full-time doing that, I'm sure there's been ups and downs and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing what you know now, would you do anything differently in starting your business?
There are some purchases that I made early on, some advertising purchases that I think that I would just skip past. I think I would have done, and you taught me this, right? I would have done social media better. I don't know what else I could have changed in the time. I think the most important thing was to build credibility in my first year. So our first year was very scant. And to build credibility, that's why I wrote a book. And the next time I write a book, I'm actually writing one, but the next time I get a book out, it's going to be for fun. But that was about credibility.
That's that authority piece. So you wrote the book on the subject. It's something that has longevity. It can be your calling card.
And it did finally turn a profit.
Yay!
But yay! And then the next piece is getting speaking engagements. So I think that's where I am. I don't know that I would do anything differently right now, actually. I probably would have started with more advisors earlier on. I didn't take on a lot of advisors. Our company really started hurtling upwards when our marketing director retired and we brought you on board, your team on board, because you do a lot of those tasks that I cannot do consistently. Push out the messaging. I mean, even figuring out our website and making it better, and the expertise that you bring, just in the same way that I want my clients to trust me to do the statistics and trust because I'm going to show them the graphs that show it, that these features are the more important features for them to pay attention to. When I do bring people on board, I trust them because I spend enough time getting to know them.
I want to thank you. I always enjoy working with you because I feel a part of the the team. And I think that it's because we have similar philosophies. You want to feel a part of your client's team so that they trust you in what you do and what you can accomplish and your recommendations, but you're also doing it for their own good because you want to see them prosper. And be a part of the team and be a part of that, the celebrations of that. You had mentioned that you have been a contract worker doing work on the side for many, many years. So you were entrepreneurial for quite some time.
Since 93. Yeah. So what is that, 30 years? Yeah.
That is great. So you had, and with your MBA program, with all the accounting, you had all these pieces to really help launch you into successful business. You had the side gigs for so long.
Well, they helped pay my student loans as well.
And so there was a great purpose. So you were preparing all those years for a transition to going out on your own, whether you knew it or not. But
no, and somebody gave me that piece of advice once. I said, I don't know when I go full time. And he said, when you make more money on the weekends that you make during the week is when you flip. Yeah. We don't want to jump from the frying pan into the other frying pan, and if we try it for 2 years and we fail, we give up too fast. If you have enough resources behind you, you don't have to give up too fast.
Well, did you ever feel like giving up?
I've had people ask me that, don't you want to, because I even get recruiting calls. Like I got a recruiting, hey, and this is a job in Florida and it pays $200,000 a year. And I was like, that's nice. I don't fit into, I'm a miserable person to supervise. I don't fit into, I'm creative to the point where I'm driven by creativity. And that just frustrates someone who has to take care of the budget and takes care of the rules. And, don't make me go ask my boss for one more thing. I just don't fit there. And so this is my bliss. My bliss is doing this. I'm also a faith-based person. You landed going, I have to launch on my own. To me, that was a God-given assignment, and so if this is my assignment, I'm going to follow it through and be supported.
Do you have any advice for anyone that's kind of on that teetering? It's like, I'm still working. Thinking about launching. What kind of advice do you have?
Well, everybody says have 6 months worth of salary in the bank. And all of us who did not follow that advice will repeat it, as I will right now, because it takes a while to get people to know that, one, you're actually out doing this stuff. Two, that you have value that's not related, that's better or differentiated from the other people who are already doing this stuff. And three, that you're going to stay. So when Stop Hell was 5 years old, people felt much more comfortable buying into us for larger gigs. So you want to build up, as you're getting ready to launch, you want to build up your new portfolio, whatever it is, right? The other piece is that if it's in the news, if it's a get-rich-quick scheme in the news, it's already gone, it's already passé, right? So there was a drop shipping movement for a while, and people made a lot of money talking on YouTube about how to do drop shipping, but they didn't make money drop shipping. Right. And they were talking about fidget spinners, and fidget spinners were already 2 years old by then. So the piece is that you've got to find the thing that you love to do, and then you got to find your market. So if you love to grow ginger, you got to find your market. I mean, I do statistics for anybody. I've done statistics for PhD candidates because I like the work. It's the work itself. And so I hearken back to the book, The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, where the architect is, he got fired because there was all this political nonsense. And so he was working at a granite place, but he was still being an architect, kept working at it. And then he got picked up again, small gig, bigger gig. Then he could support himself. So if you're thinking about teetering to launch, you've got to solve the problem of the savings. You have to solve the problem if you're United States of the health insurance. And then you've got to make sure you have a big enough portfolio that, I think one of your podcasts, somebody said you need $12,000 a month. I was taking my walk and I heard that. And I went, he's right, yelling, he's right at the cows from my neighbor's cows. But yeah. And so you've got to make sure that you can bring in enough income to support yourself for a while, because there are dry spells. I mean, Stop Hell has dry spells because in the nonprofit sector, if the economy shrinks, the first thing that the nonprofits do is close the ranks, which they should do. That's appropriate. But we're outside of the ranks. So that's the advice I would give. The other is, you can't get started on something because you think it's going to get you rich. You got to get started on something that you really want to do over and over and over again. And if you do it for a hobby, be careful about turning it into a job. So one of my friends in my spinning guild, she retired and she started making felted hats as a sideline. And now it supports her very well. But she likes it. She likes it and she likes selling it. Oh, and that's the last piece of advice I'll give. you can't get out of selling your product. You
Nope,
can't get
you
out of
can't.
marketing. You can't get out of
You
selling.
got to
People,
learn it.
yeah, people say to me, hey, why don't I just come for work for you? You'll sell me, and then I'll just, and I'm like, if you're not willing to be on sales calls or reach out to people or build your portfolio, I can't sustain that. So I have to be on sales calls.
And that is communicating the value of what
Right.
you do and how
Mhm.
you can help and how you can solve the other person's problem, because that's why we're in
Right.
business. We solve problems.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I mean, I go to a restaurant not only because I don't want to do the dishes, but also because somebody can cook something, a dish, that's better than I could cook it if I had it. Whether or not it's because they have the ingredients, right? So when we sell Stop Pal, it's not because, oh yeah, we can do what you can do, but you should just pay us 10, whatever amount more per hour than you pay your regular staff. It's more like we can take care of this in a shorter period of time. We can take care of it better. We can fix it so that you can do it from here on in. We can teach you to do it so you can do it from here on. It has to be value added, and we have to explain value added.
there's not enough of you in the industry. So these nonprofits are having a struggle of employee turnover or even recruitment. With
Yeah.
the skills that you have, you can streamline getting them to the end faster because of your experience.
And we've done all three. So we have done some of the modeling while they were trying to recruit somebody to full time. We have trained someone who was in shop who had longevity. And the third one is we've set people up on our self-paced courses to do that sort of thing, or done coaching. So we have a client now, we're building a model for them, but part of my assignment with building the model is teaching their in-house data scientists all the nifty tricks and tips. He's a good data scientist. He's really good with data. It's been a pleasure working with him. And at the same time, all the nifty tricks that I get because I get to noodle around all day Sunday, I can share those and sort of, escalate what he can offer his shop.
What's so cool about you coaching, consulting, teaching, having that outside perspective, teaching that data scientist who's very good. But what I get excited about is that you guys are working with his data.
Yes.
It's not
I get to play with data. I get to play with data.
And it's more meaningful because when you're I don't want to say stuck in an organization, but when you are in your cubicle in an organization, you have tunnel vision, and that's just the way it happens. So having someone like you with the outside perspective, working with your own data to say, have you ever looked at it this way? Or have you used this tool?
Right.
It's like light bulbs when you are actually working with the stuff that you work with every day, instead of going to, not that there's not value of it, but maybe going to a conference and getting some ideas. That's the start of it. You speak at conferences in the industry, and that sparks ideas that leads to other things. And
also, I get to dance and sing in front of an audience. That's great.
There you go. And you have courses that teaching. Can you tell us a little bit about those resources?
Sure. So once again, we're always listening to the audiences, right? So we're always listening to our market, and people have said to us, Marianne, it's really expensive to hire you to do this model for us, and then you'll only do it once, and we'd like to learn how to do it ourselves, right? And I'm always up for expanding the collection of good data scientists in the nonprofit sector. I support my sector. So we started building self-paced courses. And this is it's like, if you go on Coursera, you learn Python by watching all these videos and doing the exercises. It's the same for us. It's self-paced. It's, purchase one, you watch me talk about it in a video, then you watch along with me and try it, the exercise, or Greg, or Ruthie's building her course now on prospect management. So that's a way to first avoid the travel cost, because nonprofits are really hesitating now for travel cost. Second, to avoid paying us the travel cost to come in and do training in person. And then the third is that the people can watch the video, rewatch the video, watch the video a third time. I didn't get it, right? And then put in the comments section, I didn't get it. And then we come back in and help them out. So it's cost effective, but it's also works in the environment that our clients have to live in. I love to teach, right? So anytime I can get in front of an audience and share something that's really wicked, cool, and fun, and isn't this great? I love that. I'm a really energetic person. And so I get asked to do presentations, especially after lunch, because I literally dance in front of the room and talk about, and then look, p-value, look at that, isn't that great? And people are like, okay,
But don't you have
but
to be? I would much
yeah,
rather
yep.
see you all enthusiastic
Hmm.
instead of being in a room
Hmm.
with the guy that's got, oh, what is
Yeah.
it?
Now
Bueller?
this is very
Bueller.
important. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that because
Yeah.
data can be fun.
Right. And and we hear a need. So our water cooler chats came out of COVID. And once everybody had to go home and work from home or not work for a while, we started the water cooler chats just so that people could hang out together. That's why we call them water cooler chats. And then when we shut them down because we ran out of topics, people wrote to me and said, you just like that was the end of it for me. I was just like, I was so sad. We had to bring them back.
Yes.
People wrote to us. So you reminded me when I was at Cornell, we would get requests into the business intelligence team. And because I was the new kid, a lot of the ones like my Excel doesn't work because came to me, and I'd go down and I'd say, this is how you do it. But then I said, you know what? We need an Excel course. We had a classroom, right? So I said, I'm going to teach administrative assistants Excel. My boss is like, fine. And so then I'm teaching this class, and just like I do with Morse courses, you have to answer a question for me to throw a chocolate at you. But it was a need. You would think that people who go into, you would think that those skills are there. But if you work in the same job for 30, 40 years, you pick up the stuff if you can. Right. So we were able to do that. We were able to build some of that out. And some of my small business friends, I've said to them, I can teach you how to do this stuff in Excel. And they hear how much is it going to cost, right? They don't get that I can give you back 2 hours out of your week.
Right.
They might.
Which is really important. You had mentioned perhaps early on, maybe one thing that you would do differently is have more advisors. Well, in our whole career, we need to have that professional development, that learning, because that will get us to the end result faster, or it opens up our mind to do better or achieve, or just it's a great journey and learning different things that can be applied to what you do.
Yeah. And I require learning in myself. I noticed that I started slowing down on things that I'm not really, really interested in. But I mean, this past year, I learned how to do bobbin lace. I hope next year in 2025, I get to learn weaving finally.
You have a lot going on because there's so many avenues and data that you can go. But I think we've distilled it down for operations.
Operations, right.
And those workflows, the processes to streamline things on a long-term basis, save a lot of frustration, headache, and money in the nonprofit sector, which their budgets are very thin.
Right.
So,
and they're still being held to that standard. I don't know I can't remember if it's 15 cents or 7 cents for every dollar you bring in goes back to the administration of your program.
That's why they're in business, is to serve a need, and
it's not to raise more money.
It's not to raise more money. It's a non-profit. So that means that the profits less the overhead. So your overhead needs to be really small so that those profits can go to the program that you're in business for.
Yeah, sorry. That's why when people say, if we were a business, then we'd spend money on these tools. And the answer is no. If you were in business, you'd spend money on the tools that the owner wants. I have a friend who's an actuary, and I said to him, what tools do you use? Do you use Tableau? Do you use, Python? What do you use? And he goes, I use Excel. And I'm like, okay. So in nonprofits, we might actually be the ones who are pushing the envelopes to efficiency because we have to. What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. Right? We might be the ones that are actually pushing the envelope, not our for-profit partners. Although they're the ones that are coming up with really cool ideas about how to approach the market.
A lot of the same tactics for profit or nonprofit are relevant, and some of them are just a little bit different terms. Like we have the customer journey and then the donor journey. It's the same thing.
Yep.
It's the way we communicate.
Yep.
Yep.
Engagement is engagement. Yep.
Marianne, I would like for you to share a resource that's really made a difference for you, either personally or professionally, that you'd like to share.
I mentioned I'm spiritual, so I do a lot of spiritual work. But one of the things, for people who are starting off, one of the things that I did in my first year full time was every day I watched The Secret on Netflix.
That's Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill, yeah. And then of course I bought Napoleon Hill's Big Fat Book, and I read And so, and it is about understanding that if you know that you are getting there, you'll focus on getting there instead of waiting to fail. So that's what I did for courage, right? And so I still look for ways to feel grateful every day. Right now, it's a beautiful, sunny, breezy day. I want to be outside for a little bit. And I will find a way to set my work up so that my computer's thinking about something while I'm outside for a little bit. That's the piece for me. It's not about, oh my God, what am I going to do? It's about I am succeeding. How am I doing it? Right. And it's something they talked about it in Forbes, like in the 1990s, right? Stop thinking how we're going to get from here to there. Think we're already there. How did we get here?
That's great.
Yeah.
Pieces
That's
of
that whole
advice.
manifesting thing. Yeah.
I love, you said something right there. It's a beautiful sunny day, and I have the control of being grateful for that and appreciating that and arranging my work to where I can enjoy a piece of that.
Right. Well, like in the pictures of you on the Facebook page out in the desert, I mean, you look so happy and relaxed. It is not
It's
how you look when I'm asking you my obnoxious questions, I'll tell you.
Well, maybe you should ask those questions when I'm in the desert.
Less obnoxious, yeah.
Be more obnoxious when I'm in the desert.
But I mean, how much of a great example are you setting me, right? So you have meetings with me in the back of your Clifford the Big Red van. And that's that, that's how, because you're like, that's what I want. And so clients who would be very much invested in like talking to your administrative assistant in the big building where everybody's in a suit, those are not your clients. And actually, enough of your podcasts have gone by to share with me that they really aren't your clients. The kind of person that would want that kind of external validation doesn't interest you. And for us, it's the same thing. It's not that I have to sit here and wait for the client to decide to call me. My clients are busy. Right? They'll text me. They'll email me. I've been out in my garden. A client has called me and she said, can you answer my question about this thing? I'm like, yeah, I have to walk back into the house to get on my laptop. And she waits 2 minutes and she's like, okay, you're ready. And I'm like, no, I'm walking back into my house, because it takes 10 minutes to walk back from my garden. Right. But the piece is that the way that we present ourselves in the market is how we attract the clients that we want. So I'm straightforward and direct because I don't think I should waste a client's time. And so people who they want a problem solved, they want something to get better, their database has an issue, they just want to feel somehow reinvigorated or realigned. And we come in and we're enthusiastic and I'm maternal and Greg is like Uncle Greg with his clients. And, Ruthie is like, yep, that's no problem. Very Zen Buddhist, and Wilfred just chalks right through it and figures it all out. But that's what we care about. We are not attractive to clients who want a big consulting firm to come in the big suits and talk about lofty things and sit in the back room with the vice president. You know what I mean? That's not, we want our hands dirty. We want to solve the problem.
Be a part of the team. And
be a part of the team.
People serving people.
Yeah. And, one of my big sayings is, what if it works? Right. Yeah. And so I was sitting there.
Risk.
I used to, when I had full-time jobs, it was always in my head, well, I don't know why we should do that. Well, what if it works? And then I have to talk about how much it would cost to try it. Right. But now it's my money,
Right. Sometimes you do take risks.
One of my professional friends, he said to me, he says, it seems like you just sit up in your farmhouse and you just do whatever you feel like all day. And I said, yeah, and sometimes I get paid for it. And he's right. That's how it goes. I love it.
I love your attitude, and I'm honored that you are a faithful listener, and I also am even more honored that you are a guest today on the show.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Gayla. I mean, I talk to you about this stuff all the time on my paid time, so I appreciate getting to talk to you about this stuff when I'm not paying you for your time.
I love it.
But yeah, I mean, the podcast that you bring, because the United States was founded by entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurship is the way that disenfranchised groups of people have risen from the lowest positions up into where they want to be. So we're following Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, white men, but we're also following Oprah Winfrey. And who was the lady? She was like one of the Rockefellers. She had a beauty supply company. She was one of the Rockefellers' neighbors. I forget her name. Somebody will tell us. Yeah, we're following their footsteps. It's like, I can do this better on my own. I'll do it. Milton Hershey, God love him. Yeah. So thank you for being my advisor, and thank you so much for your podcast, because I'll be listening going, yeah, whatever. Oh, right. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I will see you again real soon.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
Well, thanks for joining me today. You'll find all the links in the show notes to connect with Marianne, plus some additional resources. Let's continue the conversation. What is your biggest takeaway from today's show? Hop over to Facebook and post your thoughts about today's show in the Live Full and Work Fun Facebook group. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, have a fantastic week. Live full, work fun.